education, the traditional methods of education, I would like to call it education 1.0. The one based on certificate and degree is really behind us. Now we are at the age of education 2.0, which is really based on skills and based on experience. So the way you are trying to converge, and here also there's innovation aspect of it, between education, technology, and entertainment to deliver an engaging experience for the audience. That's the main cause, and that's the main objective behind Mind Movers, because the current education system would not allow the generation really to innovate, right? To be competitive in the job market, to be competitive internationally, right? Also, the other current EdTech platforms that they are available worldwide, on a worldwide basis, and also in the region, they're a bit stuck in the past, meaning that number one, they rely on academic only instructors to deliver the content, and people want to learn from the best. People want to learn from people who have actually went through the same experience, who have evolved, who have excelled, who have inspired generations. So they want to hear about those successful people, right? And also they want to understand how they were successful in a similar environment. Sharing success stories, be inspired is very important. Also, the old format, the long format of some of the EdTech platforms, which is like you go into a course and you spend 2 to 3 weeks trying to understand something, is today people, they don't have the stamina, right? Especially, the Gen Z and even before Gen Z, it's not practical, right? So they are used to social media type of content. So, and I'm not, I don't want to say that it's like fast food, but it's kind of like shorter format.
Healthy fast food.
Healthy fast food, exactly. So 3 to 4 hours of content instead of 2 to 3 weeks, right?
Just the nugget that they need to know.
They need to know really to excel in their career, or to choose their career, or to be inspired by, the greatest minds in the industry that they're operating in. Okay. Also, the production value that we see in those EdTech platforms, it's really very boring. So if you attend some of those courses, you see yourself like, wow. Today, if you don't see yourself in and you see that there is certain modern aspects of the content production, okay, you will feel that you are detached from even the delivery, from even the great idea that's been delivered by those icons. Therefore, we're focusing on a high production value that's actually could be compared with HBO standards, with Netflix standards, just really to grab the attention of the audience. The last point, which is very important, is the platform itself. So the platform has to be personalized, has to be localized, has to have certain technology aspects when it comes to AI and machine learning to study user behavior, to help audience with their curriculum and with their training paths, right? All those to help us with certain analytics, real-time analytics to really feed back into the process of the content development and the content generation. So
we keep becoming relevant
to our audience, right?
Yes.
And even using technology to automate the engagement with the audience. So this is where we're a bit different from the traditional EdTech platforms. Therefore, we're calling ourselves an edutainment, which is really the convergence between education and entertainment.
So it's education and entertainment. So it's people are actually entertained.
Delivered an entertainment method.
Okay. So
the entertainment aspect coming from the icon, because all our content, as again, we don't only partner with academic people. No, we partner with successful people like well-known, famous, quote unquote celebrities. I would like to call them iconic instructors, like icons, right? But they have to have both content and popularity. So there is thin line here between content and
useful content and
popular
actually
people. You may find the most popular person in specific industry, but it doesn't have the relevant content for us. So we don't choose them, right? And you may find a great mind, a smart, intelligent, academic, but he's not popular. He's popular for people, really,
yes.
to really make sure that the formula is there. So also will not be part of our selection criteria.
Very dense. What do you think of the EdTech landscape in our region here?
It's evolving, to be honest. It's evolving.
Relative to the rest of the world.
If I give you numbers, you'll be shocked. So on a worldwide basis, there's around 4,300 EdTech platforms,
okay.
right? In the region, the active ones, there are only about 17 or 18.
What?
Yeah. So it's almost 30,000 like 0.03%, right?
Okay.
Usually Middle East represent 1 to 2% of any global number, any global market. With EdTech, we're really lagging behind, let alone edutainment. So edutainment, probably we are the first to play, in this. So numbers usually represent reality, right?
Yes,
so this is how the EdTech...
And it's very important to know, because when you look at the landscape and you say that you have only 17 or 15 of those 4,000 worldwide, it's shocking.
It's shocking. And there are some efforts at government levels. There are some efforts at institutional level. It's not coordinated. And also, it's not orchestrated by the venture capital or the venture capitalism world, right?
The investors and the...
We'll touch on it because
it's very important.
There's a certain challenge that would actually harden the development of a startup and entrepreneurship landscape.
We'll talk about this.
In the region. One of them is the strategy and mentality of the VCs in the region.
Is it the market that doesn't exist? Because if you have a hungry market and then you have a gap and then you have someone who will fit the gap, people will jump on that opportunity. This is classic market stabilization in a free capitalist market.
True. But you're pushing me to bring the example now of the VCs. So I will speak about it now.
Okay, before you talk about the VCs, so let's say that we have a market, a ripe market, really good amount of people who would jump immediately at the opportunity of any sort of these EdTech platforms and pay for it, or the business model could be. You
said pay for it.
Or the business, that's what I'm saying.
Here's the challenge. Okay. The willingness to pay for content in the region is still challenged.
So it's not just so it's the business model in this case?
The business model is there are some business models that actually they could recognize revenue at the very early stage. And there are some business models that you need to be a bit patient. The content play in general and the EdTech and edutainments, it needs to have stamina. And to have long strategy of revenue generation activities, right?
At least 3 to 5 years.
At least 3 to 5 years. And the VC world has changed, right? They don't have that patience anymore.
Here.
On a worldwide basis, you realize what happened last year with the startup valuation. That's actually caused
a ripple effect around the world,
or a wow effect. Not a wow in terms of they're impressed. Wow, oof, what have we done, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are times where money was free for startups, right?
Yeah,
and VCs and investors, they just want growth without looking at profitability, without looking at specific revenue streams, right? The honeymoon is over, and now they are very meticulous on looking at the ramp up of revenue and the profitability even before asking about the growth. That's number one. Number two, in the region here, okay, VCs, the concept of VCs is that they should be true believers of any bold innovation ahead of anybody else. But reality is different. You'd be surprised that 15% of the funds raised in the region, only 15%, okay, goes to a pre-seed to seed round type of startups.
That's it?
That's it.
A huge limiter.
Huh? A huge limiter, because they are more of let's wait and see.
So relative, let's say to Silicon Valley, How's the number in Silicon Valley? Are you
around
aware of it?
48%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is completely different, right?
Day and night different.
Because this is how you enable a market,
of course,
right? And their philosophy and strategy is, let's wait and see. Let's see if there is traction, right? Also, which, by the way, it's inhibiting for innovation as well.
Of course.
There are
but that's no lack of capital. It's
no
just
lack
the
of
mindset.
capital. It's how you distribute the capital, how you define your portfolio of investments, right? And are you a follower or a leader? Because one aspect of, by the way, being innovative, innovation creates leaderships and vice versa. Without the right leadership and leadership support, there is no innovation. So some of the VCs in the region are followers. They follow specific trends. Okay, everybody is investing in fintech. Let's go after fintech. Okay, AI is wow. AI, let's go and invest in AI. Fine. There is no harm in really doing so, but it has to be balanced. You cannot build a scalable and sustainable economy if you invest in one or two areas only. Your investment has to be, across the board, touching all aspects of the economy, touching all aspects of society. This is how you grow the country. This is how you evolve the country on a fairly, balanced way.
What is the root of this?
I might be wrong, but this is the way I see it here in the region.
No, I second that. And, from my experiences with investors here, and even with founders who are close to me who have investors. I mean, I said this before. I had horror stories about investors waiting at the door of a startup at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, waiting for the founder to come. And if he's late, it's like, where are you? So this shows about the level of trust and maturity of the investor themselves. And at the same time, I have friends who are on track, but slightly behind when it comes to revenues, and investors almost this close to cutting them off just because that they've had a hurdle or two, and they have this very low levels of patience when it comes to what the outcomes of this venture or this startup. So the maturity of the investor is very, very important. Why? Remember, this is a very melting pot. It's not like it's all from this region. You have multitude of people from many regions around the world.
To be fair, we need also to assess the founder's maturity as well, and the startup's maturity. It's not all, we cannot throw everything on the VCs. But you're saying why? You cannot expect us in the region to be very advanced, let's say, on something, and very, laid back on something else. We are here in the region. So the whole ecosystem somehow is lag behind. That means the founder's maturity, let's say in the US, is different than here. Let's face it, right? And also the same with the investors.
Okay.
So that means that both ends have to mature enough, really, and to create a new, working relationship that's built on trust, built on transparency, built on belief, built on exercising what VC means in actually in its core definition, right? Give you an example. One of the VCs told me, in private, that because we struggle in sometimes getting feedback from VCs. Are you okay gonna move ahead with us or not? Sometimes there's no answer. Sometimes there is very unclear answer. That yes, your business model is amazing. We are subscribed to it. Your idea is beautiful. But you know what? We prefer to come at a later stage. Let's say at round A. Or sometimes, they would come and say, you're a bit lacking the technology enablement in your platform, or so on and so forth. But there is no big no, and there is no big yes. So they told me that, listen, nobody from the VC world will have the courage to say no to any startup, because what if you make it? So we will be on our database
between both lanes. Huh?
The ones that you said no to you. So in front of our superiors, we have let an opportunity go. So even in an Excel sheet where we, assess those startups, we just leave some of the startups hanging in between. We don't want to be the one saying no, and then you realize that, I know that I'll be creating enemies from VC, and I need the fund for my startup. I'm sure that they will have
needed from
open hearts.
I'm sure they have the open heart. And listen, I agree with you. It's not all on VCs. And, I've had once a meeting or a casual talk with a VC who has been stung by founders numerous amount of times, and founders that just vanish, take the money and go. And remember, this part of the world is filled with it's dynamic. It's a very unique socioeconomic dynamics in this part of the world. So you and I are expats here. Today we're here. Tomorrow we might not be. So what guarantees do these VCs, whether they're this part of the world or not? And that unique dynamic at a societal level, I believe, creates that sort of skepticism at the investor level. Yes. But also, there's a macro cultural element, which is conflict avoidance, which is low tolerance for risk, which is saving face. Like you said, there's an element of I'm a winner. Yeah. Failure in our society, especially in the Middle East, we're not yet embracing failure as a learning. We're embracing failure, and we have this. We pass judgments on people who make it and people who don't in a clear way that detracts people from saying, oh, I made it or I didn't make it. Now, the other thing is, and which goes back to education. Yeah. The traditional way of education is what? Is assessments, is tests.
Yeah, oh my God, that's ranking. One of the major points.
And you're the first of your class, you got 99, you got this, and
so you focus on
system.
Performance. Academic performance versus learning.
Exactly.
And this is one key element that has to be completely looked at. And
remember,
changed.
this is from the get-go.
Yeah.
So these people, when they grow up, they become exactly the same. I want to be a winner. I can't fail. This is making more. This is one. That's why they're always in between. So, like I said, it's a bigger system, bigger than an investor or even a founder. That it's a mindset that needs to be changed.
And it's also the way we were raised as well.
Yes.
So parenting is an important element of that either would develop innovation or would actually
100%
hinder,
100%. When we grow up thinking that if we're the second or third or fourth or fifth in class, and then we get scolded because we got 99 or 98 instead of 100. And then that's the deciding factor of whether we made it or not, not the actual performance, the actual learning. Yeah. Then that will be ingrained in our behavior moving forward.
And it will make you also perfectionist. And perfection is not healthy.
Absolutely
at all.
Not.
I remember my mom, actually. I was an A student, believe it or not. I was an A student, and I used to, the math, full mark was 60. So he was always to get 60 out of 60. So one time the teacher was telling my mom, did you say Mabruk to Tarek? He had always 60 out. Said, why to tell him Mabruk? It's his duty. So that was her answer, right?
Yeah.
Assume that this is like the minimum. That's, imagine the pressure that puts on a child's mind that you always need to be
and that's in the entire education system.
At that expectations, right?
How do you fight that? You can't find it.
You go to shrinks. You go to coaches.
But for your kids, how do you? Like my daughters used to be quote unquote in schools, and the schooling system, they have this. Even if the system itself doesn't propel or promote this type of competition between students, the parents of the students will instill in the students that, and then she will come feeling that, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that, and the students become, I had to take her out.
Trust me, Osama, it's not about only education. And now probably when we go more in discussion, I will bring the elements of parenting.
Yeah.
Put education aside.
Yeah.
I used to take my son to soccer training, right? They used to train here in all the schools. Let's say there's a match.
Okay.
Look at the parents at the fence. Look at the parents, how they are shouting at their kids, how they are trying to put pressure on them. Yes, shoot, pass, no. And they get angry and they create an environment of unhealthy between parents, right?
Yeah.
We're there to, enjoy our time. We're there to cheer for our kids. We're there to help them grow, help them learn a new habit, a new hobby. But leave them alone. So this is cultural. There is cultural challenges in this part of the world. There's cultural taboos. There is culture limitations. There are, I think, the number one people that they have to be educated are parents. Therefore, my next venture would be on parental education. Because if you are not equipped as a person with the right tool to raise your kids, you will be going through try and error. You will be trying with the poor kids that you have. And I'm not saying that we are excluded. We all went through tough times with the way we raise our kids, especially the first child.
Yeah.
The first child, the poorest, because we try everything with the first child, right? And sometimes not based on knowledge or based on maturity. It's based on what we inherited from our parents. It's based on our cultural values, based on the cultural pressure. Yes, parents has to be first to be educated, to be made aware, to be able to raise a generation that actually, back to the innovation, be able to be innovative. Right?
Yes.
Because it goes back to that stage. It goes back to that age.
Yes. Because innovation is about taking risks. And innovation is about failing and embracing failure, because it is the only way to learn. Innovation is practically about looking forward. And even if you don't know your path, you don't get anxious. You get actually excited because you don't know.
Yeah.
And if you're risk averse, if you're someone who wants to be a winner all the time and you can't fail, if you're someone who is always having this peer pressure from your colleagues, from your friends, from your society, that will always be the subliminal way in your mind that stops you from even taking this. And I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
Like, I stand in front of the mirror, and it wasn't until 2020 that I actually thought of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It was always in my mind since 1999 when I started my first job. But I never was able to do it. And of course, in time, it becomes harder and harder because you get married, you have kids, you have schools, you have this and that. But then there's something that needs to be done at a societal level that encourages people. And it's happening. Yeah. It's happening. And I can see it. It's happening.
It depends on where you live. And it depends, if you need to look at the Middle East in general, not only GCC, because GCC is part of the Middle East. And even sometimes the population of GCC somehow is blended with the Middle Easterns, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I look at the parental challenges and how it's actually, its implications on the next generation, and also implications on innovation.
Yeah.
The first challenge is emotional silence. What does it mean? Today, we don't develop an environment that would encourage our kids to share their emotions. And sharing their emotions expressing their emotions, very important to how healthy the child would be mentally, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to innovate and also to be creative. That's number one. Number two, the strict discipline. The strict discipline is also inhibitor for innovation. And I would like to go one step further to say sometimes a violent strict discipline. And I'll give you a number that's also shocking for you, that in certain countries in the region, 90% of the children, they went through at least once violent discipline a month. 90%.
That's sad.
Yeah. So that, this is reality.
That's very sad.
Right? Yeah. And we cannot just ignore it. Right?
Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not.
The third element I look at parenting as well, it's limited independence. The way we raise our kids, we don't make them independent. What does it mean when they are independent? They cannot develop autonomy. Okay, autonomy is very important for decision-making skills.
Yes.
And the number one entrepreneurial aspects, of successful entrepreneurs is like to be able to
100%.
make the right decisions, right?
Correct.
Also, there is the gender disparities. The way we raise the male is different than the way we raise the female.
Is this still an issue?
It's still, don't look at the small percentage of the society. Look at the broader perspective.
Yeah.
So if you are a boy, you have to be strong. You have to be a leader, right? You have to be responsible financially, all right? For your family, etc., etc. The way we raise, the girls, more protective, more of caring, right? More of always worried about them. What does this mean for the women empowerment at that age? It makes them a bit shy. Made them, they have a bit of challenge with their self-esteem, right? They don't take risk. And taking risk is one major aspect of being successful entrepreneur. If you look at the US, women participation in startups is around 15.5%, right? In the region is 4%. Yeah. As women founders or women entrepreneurs. So look.
Is there any study or any statistics to what's happening, or is it just cultural?
It's cultural. One of them. It's education. It's all. You cannot be beyond those two elements: culture and education, right?
Yeah.
That's when it comes to parenting. For the young kids. Now, if we come at how you coach a young generation to choose their careers. And here also there are another set of challenges. How are they allowed to look at non-traditional career paths? The answer is no. Okay. Why? Number one, because there is academic pressure and culture pressure and cultural expectations. So usually medicine,
doctor, engineer,
laws, okay. This would preserve specific prestige in the society. So that's still there, believe it or not.
That's true.
Okay. That's number one. Number two is the lack of exposure and the lack of knowledge, meaning that if I am high schoolers, right? Do I have the right resources today I have ChatGPT, but not enough, right?
Of course.
Do I have the right mentorship program? Do I have the right coaching? Do I have the right program that would help me understand? Those are the possible studies that would take me to the, non-traditional academic paths or non-traditional career paths. There is no today, right? The third challenge also is the, I believe as well, is the financial concerns. What does it mean? Does this career path secure financial stability for the region? For your family,
for the individual and the family,
and that always they look at professions after graduation and how much would create financial. That's all also would make the life of the young generation harder, and they will be looking for the traditional ways of or the traditional career paths, right?
Yeah. I love how you've laid down systematically and in a structured way the parenting challenges, and then we go one step up and we look at the culture, which is the collective of all those parenting behaviors.
Yeah.
One thing that always struck me is in our region, especially in the Middle East, but also GCC specifically, we have a cultural cohesion, meaning we don't have right versus left. We don't have democratic versus this or that or labor or whatever. And you don't have this cultural fights. You don't have ideologies that really bring down the society to levels of focus that why do we need to even focus about this? When we come back and how we relate it to innovation is innovation has, generally speaking, innovation is the main predictor for a nation's prosperity.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of innovation, the radical type, not just the incremental type. And if you look at the Global Innovation Index, the index from the United Nations, you know that the GCC is extremely lacking behind.
Yeah.
Dubai, obviously, and the UAE is at the forefront from the GCC at 31 or 35. But then you go to the Saudis, which is in the 40s, and then all the way to Oman in the 70s. So we're really trailing behind. However, The drivers for innovation are, according to academia, are four: government, capital, talent, and culture, right? So governments, we mentioned that they're facilitating. I mean, you and I here are living for the longest period. We're opening our businesses. Anything we want is, you go to any government entity here and you go out as if you're coming to a 5-star hotel. Actually, they have a 5-star rating to government customer services
as well.
And a happiness index, which they take really seriously. And then you have capital. Obviously, there's no shortage of capital. We talked about investors and investors' maturity, but that also linked to the founder's maturity. And then it's the egg and the chicken, and we can talk about that. And then we talk about talent. This is a talent magnet. The other day, we were rated 3 at importing talent from everywhere in the world, and the legislation and the policy here to make it and facilitate to talent to live here and work here is really great. But then we're talking about culture, which is, I think, the field of discussion that we're having here.
If we, the GII looks at 3 elements: infrastructure, sophisticated market, also the what they call the creative outcome or creative output.
Yes.
We spoke about 2 challenges: the parental, the way we're raising our kids, which is important, and the education, right?
And education.
If we look at other aspects, GCC, it started to be an oil-based economy, right? They changed that 10 years ago, 15 years ago in the UAE.
It's part of their national agenda.
Absolutely. It's transforming to a knowledge-based economy.
100%.
But Osama, it's a journey. Innovation is a journey. I'm not expecting to see results overnight. It took other nations hundreds of years, right? So we're getting there. Meaning that we have talents. We don't lack ideas. Okay, we don't lack resource in terms of financial resources,
even execution.
I think we lack transforming those ideas into life, into real life. This is where the challenge is.
What do you mean?
I mean that it's not only you have a great idea, and we have the money for it, right? It's how you keep the balance between the ideas that you have at hand, right? How you allocate the resources to the idea that would make the most impact and the most, that would impact people's life. This is important. I think here we need to do a bit of work. So if I envision GCC 10 years from now, I think if they need to reform education system. That's number one, right? They need to involve private sector.
But why do we need to reform education? If education now, like you said, the education 2.0 and beyond is not about the system, it's more about the learner. So if I'm a learner and I go and know that, okay, I need that skill, like you mentioned, skill-based, then I just go and it's borderless.
No, it's actually the challenges in education, they are too many aspects of it. Number one, today, our education, I always look at GCC as the core of the Middle East, but it's not the Middle East. And if we need to look at our problems, we have to consider the broader Middle East challenges, right? So the current education system is relying on routine learning, right? So memorization over understanding. Okay, that's number one. The second, also, we lack the creative outlets. How many theaters we have? Okay, in a specific country.
Comedy clubs.
How many comedy clubs? How many arts? How can I say, art schools we have? This also develop and create environment for innovation, right? That's number two. And number three, as well, we have still authoritarian teaching styles, right? This also would limit questioning, would limit inquiring, would limit being critique about anything. Okay, and this is
critical thinking.
Critical thinking is important as well. How you apply knowledge in a creative way. Also, the curriculum is fixed. So the curriculum is fixed. What does it mean? It means that it narrow your subjects of learning, and it narrow also your perspective of any matter that you come across. All of those, okay. And last but not least, which is very important, you mentioned, is the evaluation based on performance assessments.
Exams.
Why? Okay. So this is why education has to be reformed.
But what's the alternative?
Alternative is not to completely replace, but to complement and supplement. Okay. So the routing system has to be completely revamped, right? We need to introduce other educational methods, which is platforms based, okay, mentoring programs. You need always to connect students, learners with mentors at all levels of education as well.
How sustainable is that?
With digital infrastructure, it's sustainable because it could create groups of, mentor one-to-many. It doesn't have to be one-on-one. And the one-to-many, there are many ways of doing so, and it's scaling, right?
Well, I have a problem with mentoring and coaching, Tarek, and it's like search now mentor or coach on LinkedIn.
It's overused, right?
It's very overused, and there's no system that can qualify who's a good mentor and who's not. And then someone with a gray hair who has a couple of years of experience and maybe a couple of people who accidentally they made an impact with them call themselves mentors. Like I've been with people who call themselves mentors, and I've sat with them. Now, obviously,
they need to be mentored.
They need to be mentored big time. They don't understand. They're not mentoring. They're actually teaching. They're like telling. They're not asking. They're not guiding. They're telling. And, I take this very seriously. And that's why I went to ICF and I got my PCC accreditation. Because if we're not trying to understand the science behind the human behavior and the human learning, and you just go by feeling, I don't think this is productive. What do you think about that?
It goes back to the system itself, because the system that developed an innovative generation also developed those type of mentors.
So this is everywhere, even in the West. I mean, you have these motivational speakers that you look at them, and all of them are following a certain script. They were somewhere, and then they had this double dip. They had this accident, someone died, whatever it is, and then they emerged victor, and then they went up, and now they want to tell everyone how they did it by taking money from like it's obviously from Oprah to Dr. Phil to everyone. I mean, I can mention all of them. It's carbon copy system, and it's the toxic world of mentorship, motivation, coaching. But how do you deal with this?
You mentioned GCC and how usually there is a balance between government involvements and the private sector involvements. I don't like government to be involved in everything, but when the government is like the governments here, where actually there is a trust, and they want really to develop their nations and grow. If they put the right measures, the right criteria, the right assessment, the right qualification, the right platform to assess and to judge and to develop the programs, I think this is one part of the solution. The other part is for the individual to do the homework, especially if not the young people, not the young crowd.
Exactly.
I mean,
you can't.
I mean, he will rely on governments.
But also, if you leave it to people, people can be persuaded with the charismatic, articulate person who has high level of vocabulary, who's able to put his thoughts into words quickly. To them, that's an expert. They don't differentiate between an expert and a mouthpiece. You know what I'm trying to say? So that's why mentorship and coaching is a bit of a massive gray area that I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong there. I mean, coaching is...
What would be the solution to, how can I say, to filter those programs, to filter those coaches and mentors in the right way? Because you are also in this business, right?
I think the only way is accreditation and referrals from people who are actually up there. I mean, look at how traditionally education was. You have the grandmaster who then certifies the one below them through years and years of practice, observation, outcomes, and so on and so forth. And then they do the same for others. And then there's this level of subliminal, subconscious understanding of who's who. So I really believe in accreditation, not certifications. There's a big difference, right?
Absolutely.
So I really believe in accreditation because how would I know? Like, I remember I was at a certain part of my venture here. I had two questions that I always ask myself. Why would people believe me, and how would they know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I know myself. I know that I'm articulate. I know I'm charismatic. I know, and that's not arrogance. That's actually acknowledgement of my own skills, right? It's inner self-conscious. But I don't want people to listen to me because of this. Because of this. If it wasn't for substance, and if I say it, then anyone else can. So no, it has to be something outside of me. And the more, the merrier. And therefore, that's the only way. But then the noise is too much.
Yeah.
And then you find those coaches, and especially now, you have a camera, and you can hire someone for 4,000 dirhams a month to do all the videoing and editing for you. And then you're able to have this production value to cut all the ums and ahs, and then you're an expert. And of course, if you're lucky and the gods of the algorithms for the social media loves you, they can boost you up, and that's it. You're an expert, right? And I think that's what plagues.
So accreditation.
So
back to government's involvement, right?
Yes,
exactly.
But no, so there's a difference between accreditation and regulation, right?
No, I'm saying
when you say
orchestrating.
So maybe because we don't want to close the market as well. I mean, let people be the judge. Let the market be the judge. I don't mind that, but going back to education, because it's all about education. But when we say education, we're not talking about the learners now. We're talking about the institutions, right?
Yeah.
And by institutions, I mean also mind movers.
Absolutely.
Right? So, and when I say institution, I don't mean it in the negative way. I mean it in the absolute positive way. Something that is structured. Exactly. Systematic, done in a way that is transparent. Where does this come from, and why is this? Why should I listen to you? And what qualifies you to say what you say? It's not just because you've learned it, or like when we started, you just learned a script, or you're media trained.
Then you come and speak.
That's fine for a leader, of a political leader. Let's say that's fine, because like you said, there's so much at stake, which is okay. I'm all for that, honestly speaking. But when it comes to people of influence, people who are inflicting change at a societal level, if this person is not, I would even go an extra mile and say, if he's not a researcher with every meaning of the word, meaning he has first-hand knowledge of data, the ability to analyze the data and then infer conclusions from this data, but also the ability to go ahead and understand the data and the analysis of others and the conclusions of others, and that mind, that is a person that should be a coach, or should be a mentor, or should be a teacher, or should be at a certain level. Of course, that's the crème de la crème.
Yes.
But then you have levels of that.
Absolutely. This is what it should be done. But I mean, Mind Mover is a bit different, because Mind Mover, the assets is the great mind that we have, right? You mentioned research. Yeah. That's what we do. To prepare that icon to deliver, the related content. So we use the brain and the mind and the experience and the know-how and the,
but the brain is biased.
No. I mean, and also the inspiring stories, and the successful track record and. But then, we surround that with scientific data. Right. We surround that with research. We surround that with numbers. We surround that with, to a certain extent, academic also track record for a specific profession. Okay. And then there is the glue, which is our editors. I mean, content editors, and also subject matters experts that would help writing the script. Yeah. Okay, so we don't only rely on the brain of that talent,
and that's the value of Mind Movers.
That's the value that we bring this knowledge. Okay?
You have this multiple filter,
multiple filters,
all the way from the content to the production.
We call them framework or Bible. So we have our own content Bible, we have our own production Bible. Also, we have our own platform Bible, because it has to go through a framework. Okay, by understanding exactly what the market needs. Understanding, because there's a push-pull model always.
Yes, 100%.
Meaning that there is certain things that the market audience would like to listen to, would like to hear. And there is something would like to push.
Yes.
Because our mandate, excuse me, is to elevate the knowledge of the youth, right? Our mandate is to help them with their career aspirations. Our mandate is to help them grow. That doesn't mean all the time that we give them what they want, but we give them a mix of what they need and what they want.
So I'll juxtapose this, or I'll compare this to, let's say, Skillshare.
Yeah.
Right? Skillshare, I've enrolled in it for 2 years.
Yes.
But then I wasn't able to justify the quality because it's just people who are mostly amateurs who are able to open a camera and just talk, go through stuff and just sharing their experiences, which is, by the way, the model of the platform, which is beautiful in their own way. Yeah. But then there's not much of these filters, or like you said, frameworks or Bibles that then guarantees a certain level of quality, like you said, that has to be
and met. Also it's only cascade down skills.
Yes.
It doesn't talk about business model.
No.
It doesn't talk about leadership. It doesn't talk about personal experience and inspiring stories.
Which is good for arts.
It's good for arts. But also the non-scripted kind of like have a camera and have your own
like
course.
No,
I mean, even the
okay. Gotcha.
If it's not, it doesn't go through multi-filters. It will be subject for the coach opinion or the bias, exactly. Their background, how they were raised, what's the definition of education for them. It's all will be very subjective. We're trying as much as possible to be objective. Okay, I'm not saying that we're 100% there, but at least that's the vision that we have.
What's the challenge that you're facing now in achieving your objective, which is the Middle East GCC elevation of the education of the learners of innovation?
I think the challenge has multiple faces. Let's put it that way. So there is the user behavior and the appreciation for content, right? Because there is a lot of free content.
Yeah,
go at YouTube and you find that really, really, really good content, but it's not structured.
Yes,
and sometimes it's conflicting, right? And again, back to the assessment criteria and the assessment maturity of the learner, right? So when they see a content that it's actually based on subscription, they wonder, should I pay? Should I not pay? Even look at the streaming platforms. They try to get one account and then share it with like 100 people. It's a culture again. It's back to the culture aspect of appreciating for content.
But that's worldwide. I mean, Netflix cracked down on this everywhere in the US and the UAE.
Here it's different. You know how Arabs usually try to sometimes abuse the systems, even when they go abroad, right? So unfortunately, but this is
reality is reality. We're pragmatism.
Reality. Second, again, back to the investments landscape, right? And how the mindset of investors has to be changed a bit, okay? Third is government as well, because government as a strategic investor, because they have a very important aspect at stake. So they're still looking at the traditional way of education. So they need to subscribe to having multiple approaches and multiple educational styles. I'm not saying replace. I'm not saying go from 1.0 to 2.0, completely. Go through a journey of evolution, right? And support new ideas that would contribute positively to the society, the economic and social development of the country. Believe it or not, convincing those icons to come on the platform is not a challenge. Because
interesting.
Yeah, because beside the
commercial, they want to give back.
Absolutely. If they don't want
it's about self-fulfillment.
If they don't want to give back, the discussion will stop there.
Right.
Yeah. So the first question we ask them, beside our commercial and financial objectives, we have a cause. And the cause is to give back to community.
There's a purpose.
At the purpose. We have a purpose. Exactly. Okay. Do you subscribe to this vision? If they say yes, we continue the other aspect of this. If they say no, khalas. It doesn't make sense to continue the discussions because they don't believe that they have to give back.
Because there's no value alignment.
There is no value alignment. The important to have value alignment with them.
Tara, here's I mean, Something triggered in my mind now when you said government and support, and I need to push back on that. Not because I support or not support governments. If you look, and I mentioned this before as well, there was a research paper that was published from Qatar and Saudi, I think in the UAE, which talked about the sort of, I can't remember the research question exactly, but why are we lacking behind in innovation? And the conclusion was governments need to do more. And I was furious because to do more of what? I mean, they have all the support in the world. They've facilitated, they have provided, they are made things easier, infrastructure, telecommunication, everything is available, and the restrictions is almost, and the frictions is almost none. I mean, when I started my business here, I literally didn't go anywhere. Everything was online and through phone calls and WhatsApp, and that's it. And 2 days I had my license, I came here, and that's it. So when I mentioned this to my friends in Europe, in the UK, and in the States, they'd be like, really? Like, you didn't have to do this and that and jump through hoops and I don't know, like tax this and tax that. I was like, no, it's just simple. Like, they do, please come and open, and you have this free zone and on land and it's like proper competition between government departments that will even instigate further quality and lower prices, and the game. So what more do you expect from governments to do?
Let me answer the question in two folds. The first one, when you asked me what do we need to do to improve innovation, I said number one is to reform education, but number two as well to empower the private sector to participate more, right? And to give them incentives to invest in innovation. That's number one. Number two, in general, yes, they're doing great, but the two important aspects that would reflect on any nation development is education and health.
Sure.
Right? So in education and health, they have to do more because they have a stake. They have a big stake, right? And we were just discussing how sometimes the government intersection, the government involvement would help society. We're just comparing, the West to here, how is safe, how is everything is
cohesion.
Cohesion. Is that education? I mean, education is innovation, is prosperity. It's all linked together with healthcare. I think, and when I'm saying so, it's based on experience because in Saudi and in the UAE, I spoke to many government agencies, right? And not to blame them, but they tend to box you. So where do you fit in our existing boxes? Okay, in our existing, templates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. No, let's see what we can do. So a bit of more of flexibility.
What do you want from them exactly?
I want from them participation in the process.
Right.
I want from them even investments in the concept of revolutionizing education.
Is there restrictions that you want them to remove, or is just
no? There's no restrictions. No. It's like no restrictions, to be honest. No.
Is it accreditation?
No, we don't go into education more. We are edutainment. So more of we are not into skill-based, inspiring stories, etc., etc. So it's about collaboration. It's about
why government? You have the family businesses, you have the private sector, you have the organizations.
Again, the family organizations, VCs, always look at numbers. Okay, in this type of business models and education, you need to be patient, as we said, right? The most patient player in the equation is the government. Why? Because they have a mandate, right, to revolutionize
it's not profit-driven
education. Eventually, it will be profit. We're not here just
it's not profit-driven, but of course, it has to be profitable.
Absolutely, for them, it's actually a prosperity.
Yes,
initiative.
The higher purpose
for that. So that's why they have probably the right patient for it. The private sector, and as we said, also going through maturity journey because the VC is only looking at the traction before they believe in an early stage startup, which is against the mandate or definition of a VC, right? I'm shooting at everyone today.
That makes the two of us because this is. I've said this in many podcasts, and you see part of my personality is being pragmatist.
Yeah.
And if we don't address the issue head on, there's no way we're able to solve it. So really, we're saying it with all the good intentions in the world. It's not a venting session, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's not a session just to highlight negatives. On the contrary, there's lots of positives.
Absolutely.
And if we didn't reach to a point where we're really eager to push the boundaries even more, challenge assumptions, then what's the point? If we're going to sit down here and just praise everything and everything, how is it going to change anything?
This is our duty as well.
Yes.
So if we don't contribute, then we are not good citizens.
So we're both founders. We're both. Absolutely. Let's talk about the private sector, right? Because we mentioned the private sector. Now, one of the also predictors and drivers of innovation is corporate cultures. Now, corporate culture, very briefly, is the collective behavior of the group that makes them distinct as an organization. And an organization is not the collection of the individuals. It's a living, breathing organism on its own. And that's why if you see an employee who was a superstar in organization A, he moves to organization B, all of a sudden he's demotivated, he's disenfranchised, he's lacking all sorts of will to actually produce, right? And going back to education and how the education system is so limiting, similarly, innovation and productivity is also impacted by the environment in the way that performance equals potential minus intervention. So the higher the intervention, the lower the performance. So there is potential, which is the constant. You want to make it as high performing as possible, achieving true potential, remove all intervention. The problem in our corporate culture here is it's mostly control type. So you have processes, procedures, you have a manager who tells his employees what to do, who's the expert in the domain, expects people to listen to him. There's risk aversion, there's lack of empowerment, there's all sorts of a central authority. What's your experience with that in corporates?
Have you read a book called From Good to Great?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. What makes companies great is culture. Is strong culture.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and I've worked with corporates with really, really great culture. And I've worked with corporates with a weak culture. Right. And by the way, Osama, it's not all the time related to the governance and the procedure. Sometimes you have a strong governance and some very strong operation excellence, but also you have the right culture. The right culture, and the culture is very broad word, very broad term, right? It means the easiest way to describe it is when you leave that company, or you're still brainwashed with that company, brainwashed in a good, positive way. So you think as if you are an ex-company. You operate, you behave, you collaborate.
You're an ambassador.
You're a true ambassador. And strong cultures means for those companies, if you operate in New York office or in Islamabad office or in Dubai office, is the same. You get the same feeling, you get the same processes, you get the same collaboration, you get the same communication. It's a global language. And there are some corporates, if you move from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, it's different culture, right?
That's not a strong culture.
That's not a strong culture at all. And strong cultures and the private, I don't want to be very negative, but I mean, very rare to find a regional company or local company with strong culture, to be honest.
That's exactly my observation.
It's very, very rare.
I'll tell you what, I had people on this chair who are from massive organizations, international, multinationals. The way, and obviously they're not culture experts. They're not researchers, they're not studying it. But when I ask them questions, they respond with textbook how cultures for cultivation, for collaboration, for innovation, for productivity and growth is supposed to be. And then I had people also that are from organizations, specifically private, obviously, from this part of the world, it was completely different. So your observation is on point. And in my mind, in my world, let go of education. I mean, education is very, very important. It's one pillar. It's not a cause. I mean, it'll be naive to kind of reduce it to only education. No, I mean, education is fine, but then I was educated in a government school here in Dubai.
Located back in Syria.
Exactly, and we turned out very well. So there's this element of education, but it's not the element, and obviously it's not the majority.
But I was groomed. I was, how can I say? Study is one thing, but also the first few jobs for you. So you were actually trained in the right corporate culture. And this is another school, even sometimes stronger than college or stronger than the best institutions is that corporations.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I had maybe one interaction with one multinational for 3 years out of my 25 years of professional experience that actually had true cultivation, collaboration, encouragement, actually pushing you to fail. Actually, my boss used to say, take that risk. It's okay. Amazing. I don't care. Just do it. Yeah. It might have a business. We might lose that RFP. I don't care. Just, it's okay. If you believe in it, go ahead and do it. Because the learning that you will get from that is far more than 100 courses, which will be far more expensive than the loss of business that you will have if you actually take that risk and fail. Local organizations don't have that. And all of the organizations that I've had worked with, and I haven't worked in government much, most of my life was in private sector locally. They're characterized as a control culture, which is hierarchical, authoritarian, process focused. Now, when I say process focused, the opposite is not lack of process. It's just that process is more of a guideline and an enabler.
Not inhibitor.
But if there's a genuine need to actually bypass the process, which will not cause any sort of legal implications, then that's fine, right? Which is risk taking. Why is that? Does it have to do with the macro culture? It has to do with the individuals, the lead? Because you mentioned leaders as well and leadership, and I would love to touch on that as well.
Yeah, because again, Steve Jobs once said, right, is also back to innovation. Innovation distinguish between leaders and followers, right? And true leaders, they have to be good followers as well, right? And I think that this correlation between establishing the right culture, the strong culture and leadership is very strong, okay? It comes from the leadership mindset, leadership style, leadership mentality. And in such leadership, there is always, a thin line between delegation and inspection, right?
Yeah.
That's back to the processes. Are you processes driven? Yes. But we don't breathe processes. We use processes to enable the business. We use the processes to enable the business, actually transform the business, which is always important. So if I am a true leader, okay, I find the right balance because delegation is also enable innovation.
Of course, because it's the root of empowerment, right?
The root of empowerment. But if I only always delegate without the right inspection, then here I might hit with a specific, drawback of KPIs, right? So also it's a balance. It's the right balance between delegation and inspection is very important. It's the feedback, accepting feedback, right? It's a true leader is the one who sits on, let's say, an annual or semi-annual or quarterly review with employees. It's one-on-one, okay? Give them feedback, but receive feedback. Most leaders accept and receive. One of the questions should be, what do you think about me?
But here's the challenge. Most employees will not show their true face or their true feelings to their superiors because of that power dynamic.
Not really. With the right culture, they would.
Exactly. Right environment.
With the right environment, they would. When there is no fear environment, when there's
psychological safety.
Absolutely. Okay. I call you by the name. I give you feedback.
I don't create stone walls between you and me.
I respect you. But I don't. I'm not your slave. Okay.
We're all working towards the same purpose, the same outcome. Absolutely. But we don't have that in this part of the world. I mean, we have it. Sorry, let me rephrase, because I sound like a pessimist who's just, we do, but not to the point where it has that inflection where we are actually producing radical innovation. And that's, in my world, that's the main hindrance of radical innovation. We talked about education. It's very important, and I agree with you, right? But education can be overcome, especially in this day and age with AI, with the proliferation of platforms such as yours and others. So I'm able to kind of, if I have the mind, and we have the minds, I mean, we have the ideas, like you said.
But we need to change the mentality.
Yes.
So we have great minds, as we said, right, here in the region. We have the talent, but we started with certain inhibitants related to the way we were raised. So we need to fix the parental challenges. We need to fix education, but then we need to fix corporations and businesses.
That's the crux of it.
Absolutely. The employee has to feel that the company is his company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And such.
There's buy-in. There's passion.
There's passion, and when he has the right leader, he wouldn't know whether he's working for that leader or working with the company.
Yes.
It's kind of like would be completely merged, right? Because if I'm working with the right leader, that means a leader that worries about my well-being, worries about my development, worries about my performance as well, okay? And also
feels proud of my performance.
Absolutely. And not only going from, not like pulling us. No, he's actually leading alone by example, okay? And running the team, sharing the same cultures. And employees like children, okay? Meaning that kids and children, they don't listen to their parents, what they say. They look at what they do, okay? And also you could be a leader, great speaker, amazing, articulate, business person. But I mean, you don't walk your talks. Here, there will be complete disconnection, okay? Very complete kind of like you feel that you're detached from this value system that you share or you don't share with your leaders. Creating the value system of corporation is part of building a strong culture, right? And this is also, if I share and subscribe to the value and live those values, then I'll make the company my company. Then I'll be incentivized, encouraged, inspired to innovate.
And then the idea to innovation process and everything in between will be very short.
Very, very short.
Yeah. And because, I mean, you talked about execution being a problem, but that's only for startups and entrepreneurs because obviously they don't have the same resources, they don't have the same horsepower that companies, especially large conglomerates, have. But then we have large conglomerates, we have large corporations, we have local born and bred massive companies that are not even innovating. So let alone startups and entrepreneurs. And the reason being exactly what you said. It's the telling culture. It's the controlling culture. And that comes from leaders. But that makes me frustrated because how do you change that? I mean, part of my venture is to speak.
Coaching leaders on leadership.
Coaching leaders, exactly. And making sure that they are privy and they are completely aware of the culture concept. Because like you said, culture is an abstract concept. It's not like strategy. Strategy is clear. You have KPIs, you have goals, you have measures, you have monitors, you have tactics, you have projects, you have reviews, you have timeline, you have everything. But then culture is very organic. It's very fluffy. It's behavior. It's
difficult to define, difficult to quantify.
Exactly, and difficult to even conceptualize or even communicate. So, and when you go and talk to leaders, they think that they know culture. They say, oh, organizational behavior, I studied in, I don't know, IE or London Business School, and I've known it. And that's even far. It's like when you talk to someone about economy, they know about economy. They don't know that economy is even far more complicated than what you hear in the news outlets. And that's the problem. When you look at the West, especially in Silicon Valley or in London or in Scandinavia or or in the Netherlands, one of the major things that they make sure they focus on is organizational behavior and culture. And that's why they have organizational development network, ODNs. And all of the leaders gather together to understand what makes people tick at the human level. But here, everybody's replaceable. Now, everybody's replaceable, I agree, but not to the point where everybody's replaceable because my ego, because I'm a leader and I know what I'm doing, you don't, so shut up and listen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know it's gloomy.
Yeah. Do you think it's changing here at a regional level?
I'll tell you what, this is my field of research, right? Yeah. For the past 8 to 10 years. I don't have any scientific data on it, but anecdotally, I don't see any change.
Yeah.
Like since I started here, the one of the most difficult things is, and that's why my process in business development and going through projects is, if you know your pain point, then I'll work with you. If you don't, and you're telling me, okay, what are the training courses you have? I'm not a trainer. Because the first thing, this is the difference. When I tell them that this is what I do, they're like, okay, can you send me the portfolio of trainers? I'll say, thank you very much. Have a nice life. I don't think you'll change. But then if you come and say, can you come and have a discovery session with me? Because I need to tell my problems to you and see if you're able to help me strategically think about how we can accelerate change, right? That's the mindset. But if I'll put a very rough number, it's probably 100 to 1. Right? And I've been here, again, in my research.
Then there is an opportunity to help them define their problems.
Absolutely. But the problem is, you see, as a doctor, and I'm not saying that companies should attack this as a problem, as a symptom where you have to go to a doctor or diagnose it. But as a doctor, doctors never go and convince you that you have a problem.
Of course.
You need to see and feel the problem. Now, here's the catch. Leaders don't see it, because we have double-digit growth. I mean, every time I talk to people and tell them we don't have innovation here, it's like, are you crazy? Have you seen the largest mall or the tallest tower or this or that? I was like, yes, and that's fantastic and it's magnificent. And by the way, that's no easy feat. That's really commendable. But that's not really innovation. That's innovation at a certain level, maybe tourism, maybe government, which is no easy feat, right? I'm talking about radical innovation at a level where we can export it outside in exchange for capital.
Can I say something as well? Because radical innovation linked also sometimes to radical drivers. Because innovation has specific drivers, right? And most of them are radicals. Let me give an example. One of the important drivers for innovation is change in regulation.
Right.
So when data privacy regulation changed, it drove the innovation in cybersecurity. Right? That's number one. The second also radical driver for innovation is market demands. Right? Or change in consumer behavior. Meaning when consumers started to demand sustainable products, it enabled the green tech. That's big, true. Radical, right? Competitive pressure. And here we need to see it in the region. Competitive pressure drive innovation.
But we're complacent here.
But when I give you an example, Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus, when they compete heavily, it created innovation in content and user experience, right? Technological advancements. Look at it here. We don't have a breakthrough technology advancements because technology advancements drive innovation. When the internet was invented, it enabled what?
Communication. It enabled social media. It enabled everything.
And commerce.
E-commerce.
E-commerce was, innovation in commerce was driven.
Because internet is the foundation of
technology. So that's, let's say, a mega, as I said, back to that, you mentioned the word, when you were describing the massive innovation, you said
radical innovation.
So radical innovation needs radical drivers.
Yes.
And we don't have radical drivers in this part of the world, right?
One of the things that I know for a fact that most of the people, especially in this part of the world, because we don't rub shoulders in day-to-day life with people who are up there, like Silicon Valley, for example, or like the Netherlands, or like London. We think that radical innovation happened like a light bulb. It's like, back of a tissue box, like the Uber, like they always show that image of the napkin and the way. But it's not. The problem is people fail quite quickly. And they don't understand that you can never fail if you don't quit. But then we go back into stamina, like you said. But what can give people stamina? I don't know. It's culture, it's education, it's learning.
It's all together, man.
It's everything.
Everything together.
It's everything. It's awareness. It's bringing out the reality of what we're doing and why we're doing it, simply because there's a massive wealth transfer from the global north to the global south. And the GCC is at the center of
that. Yeah.
And if we're not at the peak of our radical innovation and exportation of knowledge, of ideas, of technologies, then we cannot sustain. We will not be sustainable. We will be eaten alive. And that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
And if we don't actually do something about it at a societal level, and again, I actually will always push back against anyone who says that it's governments, because if anything, the UK, the US and others, their governments are actually inhibitors. They actually put also, you see how the legislators in the States and how they just question all of those companies about what they do and what they don't do. And in a way that's actually sometimes hilariously stupid. Yeah. Right? You don't get that.
You mean the Congress hearing?
The Congress hearings and others. Yeah. So the idea here is that you have governments who is facilitating. I mean, I'll give you a small example. Back in 2020, and that's one of the things that kind of what triggered me to actually become an entrepreneur is, you know, how the layoffs and everything else. Now, I was one of the very few who did not get affected commercially and job-wise. But that still made me think, like, I'm on visa here. I'm at the mercy of my employer. What do I do when I'm 60, when I'm 70, when I'm 80? I can't go back home. This is my home. I was born and raised here. What do I do? So the first thing that came to my mind, like every other Arab, is immigration. Exactly. So I did my IELTS. I had my friends in Canada and Australia, and I had my lawyers, and I paid whatever I had to pay. And guess what? I got the email, which is the golden visa.
Yes.
Which made me stop everything. Now, my point is, that golden visa did not come out of a vacuum. Someone somewhere in the government made all sorts of committees, brainstorming sessions. What do? We see a problem. Do this. Do it now. And that happened. I was one of the first that got it. Luckily, obviously. So what I mean by that is there are elements in the government that actually acts as fast, if not faster than a startup, to facilitate all those initiatives that can cultivate an environment to do innovation. What more do you want governments to do? Create a WhatsApp? Create a platform like tech? That's not what governments should do. Governments should facilitate and make sure that safety is there, education, healthcare, like you said. And that's done here. Look at all the government and national agendas in the GCC. All of them has education and innovation as number one, diversification from oil and gas, like you said. There's a massive awareness at a policymaker, at the government level. Obviously, it's not perfect. It never will be. Nothing is perfect. But the point is, it is done. It's incumbent, like you said, on us as private sector, as individuals, to push the boundaries even beyond. And that's what frustrated me from that research paper that said governments need to do more. It's like, what more do you want governments to do? Now, how to do it? Obviously, I don't have any answers. But it's discussions like this that can bring to the awareness of people that don't quit. It's okay. We have capital. And guess what? If you build the perfect business model and never quit, yes, it'll take you probably 10 meetings instead of 3, like compared to Silicon Valley. Yes, probably you need to bootstrap and self-finance a bit longer than it is outside, but don't compare with outside. Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley since the 40s and 50s and 60s. I mean, it's like, let's give ourselves a break when it comes to our ecosystem, right? Whether it comes to investors or founders.
And don't, for example, when you advance an existing solution, it's innovation.
Yes.
So don't shy from small innovations.
Exactly. Incremental. Yes.
Localization is innovation.
100%. Look at Kareem. Right?
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's another thing. People keep on asking me, oh, I don't have an idea. By the way, when you go to an investor, if you're because investors look at 3 things, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts about this as well.
Look at people, number one.
People, market, and the idea, right? So, and 90% is the people that makes investors kind of sparks, like, okay.
Yes, because even if you're investing in people.
Yes. And that's true even here. I mean, the discussions that I had with the investors that I know, my close circles, they're like, every time I ask them, why did you invest in that startup? The idea is like, sometimes it's even borderline crass. It's like, it's like, I don't care about the idea. I don't care. The founder, when I saw him, I saw something. I saw a vision. I saw power. I saw passion.
Absolutely.
That I know it can't be learned. And that thing is what I cling in to. And that's, I think, what we're missing here is the passion people want. And the other thing is bootstrapping and like on the founder side and self-financing.
Friends and family, exactly.
We don't do that here. We don't do that here as much.
Because, yes, people are scared because they scare back to the financial stability as well. How long it can sustain, funding myself, all right? Should I do
the runway,
exactly. And we live in an expensive country.
We do.
Exactly. Yeah.
We do.
So also they only look at their costs.
But then, I mean, this is like, when you see someone who's driving a Porsche or he's driving a BMW, right? 90% of those are on loans, and he'll be a big executive.
Yes.
But 90% of those on loans. Why did you have to buy that car?
Yeah.
I mean,
back to culture. Yeah. Back, social status, back to the way we're raised, all back to,
which is silly.
You might find me, like going back again and again. But I mean, this is the culture. Government, they're doing a lot, but they cannot do everything.
Yes.
Okay. There's still things to be done from their perspective to enable. But I mean, it's back to the, again, to the people. Yeah. So it takes two to tango.
Yes.
Right. So everyone should contribute. Everyone should really play their role.
Yeah.
Government, private sector, investors, founders, entrepreneurs, learners. So I think there is an element and there is room for improvement at all levels, right? We cannot blame only the investors. We cannot blame the startups.
We cannot blame anyone.
No,
look in the mirror.
It's not a blame game.
No.
It's a journey to assess the situation, to look at the future, and to look at the vision, and then rally the resources, rally the everyone, rally the process, rally the funding towards single unified objective, because we're here to stay.
Yes.
Right? And we are here to innovate and grow. And we are here to raise our kids.
So but it doesn't happen by accident.
It doesn't happen over time.
It doesn't happen overnight. In zero time.
Yes, here it will be the country that's based on knowledge base. But give them a bit of time, right?
And you can never fail if you never quit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where do you see Mind Movers in 10 years?
Wow. Okay. So Mind Movers, I see it as the friend of teenagers.
I like that.
A friend of fresh graduates, friends of mature as well society in terms of
replacing traditional education or augmenting it.
Augmenting. I believe in augmentation more in replacing. I believe that you build loyalties. When you start early.
Yes.
With every generation. So maybe I'm the part of Facebook generation, right?
Yeah.
So until now, you see that we are.
Oh, you're very old.
Exactly. Even older. I don't even know how old I am. So now it's the TikTok generation, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still, biased to Facebook, right? Although there's nothing now to do in Facebook, right? But I mean, still
it goes down.
Yeah. So it's the way where the first experience with the platform, and we're trying to do the same with Mind Movers to be really the
progressive sort of growing.
It's growing with the generations because we're adding other elements as well beyond.
And you're
content.
aware of that, like this is part of your strategy
absolutely,
too.
Absolutely. We'll see how we cannot disclose it today, but I mean, we see how we could really act as really trusted friends and trusted mentors, trusted advisors for all generations.
What's your exit strategy? If you have one, of course.
Multiple exit strategies. Okay. So either one of the international players could look at acquisitions like Kareem to Uber, etc., etc. It could be one.
I don't like that.
But
that is one of the exit strategies. I wouldn't lie. That's one of my exit strategies as well.
One of the first questions investors ask you, what's your exit strategy?
Yeah.
And if you don't have one, they will not invest with you.
Sure.
Because they don't want you to grow this business forever. They want you eventually to sell the business.
Most of them don't care about the P&L.
They don't care about how they sell and the multiplier, etc., etc.
True.
So also a possibility is one of the regional OTT telecom operators.
Okay.
It could be one of the government entities as well, or semi-government entities.
What about IPO?
If I need to
I access a certain level of your subconscious.
Exactly. No, if we need to just tick the box and answer politically, I would say yes, IPO. But we know that in the region, we're not ready yet. And look what happened.
You really think so?
Look what happened with Anghami. With their deal, right? They did not pay dividends, and now there is movement back to be
to acquire
by
shares.
OSN, right? Or the minority shares. So still, IPO would introduce different dynamics of challenges and different dynamics of pressure on the operating model of any startup.
But we're not still ready for.
I don't think we're ready for it. I don't want to exclude that option, but I think that in the content,
it's not on the priority of exit.
In the content play. Mainly, it's about
because of the control it exerts on the,
and also because of the business model, and because of the church of the market as well. If you don't do IPO in the US, also it's
that's completely.
It's
different.
very completely different.
Yeah. Tarek, I really enjoyed this discussion.
Likewise,
it's amazing.
Thank you.